I am going to do a reading of this book that collaboratively I created with all of the people listed over here we'll be talking about in just a second. The book is called Comet and Zakshi, An Unlikely Friendship Begins. And this is a title that Dave Ma wrote. And here is the fish that Dave Frankel drew. And then I designed the cover, and you can see that this goldfish is nibbling away at this title over here, and then it's pooping out all of our names. And of course, I like this is very classic me, but it also turns out that my nephew, to whom I'm dedicating the book, he's 4.5 right now, and one of his favorite words is caca. He likes to use that in everything, so I thought he would get enjoyment from this design as well. Okay, so I'd like to begin by talking about all the different collaborators who worked on this book. And this book's original idea came in discussions that I had with Dave Ma. And Dave Ma and I have been friends since elementary school, so it's been a very long friendship. And Dave Ma has, a niece and nephew of his own who he's writing this book for. And Dave Ma and I have been friends since elementary school. So interestingly, Dave Ma wrote this story about a fish and a bird. And when Dave Ma and I were, early friends in elementary school, one of our major discussion points or arguments, you could say, is what's better, a fish or a bird? Because I had a pet bird, Dave Ma had pet fish. And who would have imagined 30 years later we would be bringing those themes back to life. And of course now we have the answer, not to give away anything in the book, but both species, both organisms are vastly and profoundly beautiful. So, okay, the original idea was Dave Ma would write the story, I would make the illustrations, and that's what I did. You can look at my illustrations, which look kind of cool, but as I looked at them, I was like, oh, you know what? They lack a certain magic that would transport a child into a different universe. And so to do that, I called upon my cherished friend and Dave Ma's friend as well. We knew Dave Frankel since Lexington High School, so it's an old friendship as well. So Dave came and he added those layers of beauty on the first several pictures or illustrations, and then the last few, Nellie, my girlfriend, she added her magic to it. Okay, now the other part is that I'm a former science teacher. I like having knowledge and information in all the different books. And the other vision that I had for this book, I really wanted this, was to have a certain amount of complexity in it. A lot of the stories, old school stories of children's, books had ideas of death and loss and very deep ideas that the child would learn about and struggle with. And I feel that some of the more modern children's books are very sanitized and don't have that. So I wanted a book of complex ideas in it as well. So to do all of that, now also I wanted a book that would be interesting to multiple generations. So it could be that Dave Ma's story, for example, would be interesting to a 4-year-old, but then a teenager may find the science aspect to be very interesting, and then an adult may find the philosophical ideas behind the subconscious to be interesting. So that was the vision. So for the science part of it, Gessa, one of my friends, she made these really beautiful, that goldfish she drew. So these very realistic drawings. And this is based off of a existing picture, and then she drew it, and all that information is cited over there. So that's what Gessa did. And then, as I was writing this, my motivation was my nephew. My sister had this really nice desire that my nephew hear Hindi, since that's part of his heritage. And so my mother, with whom I had also been talking about for a long time, she had been wanting to write a children's book of her own. So she provided the Hindi translations. And so that's what all the collaborators did. So let's, without any further ado, start this children's storybook. Now I'll just bring it up close so you can first just admire the beauty of this picture over here. And I will read it for you. One day, let me read it like this so you can see it. Let's see, can I get my face in there too? Or one day, a small boy named Tim decided to release his pet goldfish, Comet, into a pond, as his other pet fish did not live long and died without a name. So it's already, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. If I were doing a reading, I would ask the person who's listening to it, well, why did that first fish die without a name? Oh, what could be a possible reasoning? Maybe it lived only a short period of time. And then what kind of, I don't know, trauma or PTSD did Tim experience from the death of his first fish, that as soon as he got his second fish, he named it, but then decided, you know what, I am just going to release it. I'm just going to let go of it. You know, he's looking quite sad in this picture, if you look at it. And then who's this? This might be the mother right over here. Why would a parent allow a child to release a fish into a stream? So many unanswered questions that one can ask the children to come up with potential storyline answers, make it an engaging experience. Okay, so now I go on to the science side of it. So as I had mentioned previously, I wanted this book to have those complex themes in it. And Dave Ma independently came up with this idea of talking about releasing a goldfish into a lake or a pond. And then I looked and I found that there's scientific literature on this actually happening. People are actually releasing their pet goldfishes into lakes and ponds, particularly in lakes and ponds that have not evolved to have goldfish. So goldfish evolved mostly, I think in the China area, the Asia area. And so places like Australia, the United States, for example, the Great Lakes, are being damaged because people release goldfish. And those goldfish are damaging the ecosystem. And not the fault of the goldfish itself, the fault of the humans for releasing them. And so that is one of the things that I talk about here, that goldfish are being released, they're not native, and it leads to complex questions, such as, should we try to prevent these pet goldfish from destroying the ecosystem? In some communities, scientists are trapping the goldfish, stunning them with electroshock, introducing predators, and even killing them. Is that morally okay? Should we try to explore more humane ways of dealing with the goldfish? It's not the fault of the goldfish, so what do we do now? And that's a complex question that one needs to have. The other science fact that I put in here is, and this is based off of my own life. I had a pet goldfish that died somewhat, quickly. And a lot of people think goldfish don't live for long, but what it turns out is that most species of goldfish can live as long as a dog can, for like a decade. So why don't they? And it turns out that pet goldfish, because they release a lot of poop into the water, so they can make it toxic for themselves very quickly, and also because they need a lot of oxygen in the water, you actually need quite a large tank for a goldfish. A lot of people don't know that, and ideally some form of filtration. So if you do that, your goldfish will live for a very long time. The other science fact that I thought was really interesting was, growing up, people would tell me that goldfish are stupid. They only have memories that last for 3 seconds, and it turns out that's false. Goldfish memory can last for weeks, months, even sometimes up to years. Goldfish also have the abilities of object perception, social learning, and spatial awareness. So there's a lot of things. And this goes into some of the very early research that people did on animals, where they underestimated the intelligence of animals because they took the animal out of the environment that they were evolved to be in. But you put that animal in the environment that they've evolved to be in, then you can see really the depth of their cognitive intelligence. Okay, and then this part over here, I'll describe in a second, but this is from a paper, and this paper, beautiful paper, it gave mathematical, physics equations, chemistry equations on all the dynamics that happen in ponds and lakes. I really thought it was really beautiful, and so I used some of those equations here. If you look at another image later on, you can see the shape and the structure, and it's actually very similar to this drawing right over here. So I'm taking ideas and motivations from the literature to design my illustrations, to pay homage to them. So that's what this is over here. Okay, so that's the science part of it. Now let's get into the subconscious part of it. So the subconscious, the idea was that for every image that I made, it would refer to Dave Ma's story, but then would have a second meaning, a hidden meaning related to my subconscious and philosophies around it. And this image is mostly introducing some of that vocabulary that I have in there. So the first thing to notice here is that there is a double-layered membrane. And this is borrowed from biology and neuroscience. When I sit in these lectures at Brandeis, I see a lot of these images, so I pull them into my artwork. And in real life, what a double-layered membrane does is it separates the external world from the internal for a cell. And so in that same way, this double-layered membrane separates the internal world of our subconscious from the external world of our conscious world. So subconscious versus conscious. Below the double-layered membrane, everything is the conscious. Above it, everything is the subconscious. So that's the first part of this drawing. And the subconscious is an interesting topic, and in the description I'll put a link for another video that I did for the subconscious event, where I did a quick scientific literature review of what the subconscious even means. If you're interested in that, you can watch it. And also, another video that I'll put in the description is the one that I did with Dave Frankel. So again, you can see this is the original concept art, and then Dave Frankel turned that into this. And so we have a video where Dave Frankel goes layer by layer explaining how he turned that into this. So that'll also be in there. Coming back to it, everything in the subconscious, you see these loops here. What that's representing, they're all entangled loops here. They represent looping thoughts that we may have in our subconscious, but also this idea that the neural associations that go into creating the subconscious, we don't exactly know. We don't know where ideas are bubbling up from, where our emotions are bubbling up, what's influencing it, because the subconscious is often this realm that's beyond what our conscious mind has access to. So that's what that imagery over here is representing. And then you'll see these two creatures, and they both look alike, and those are called Zimbers. Zimber is the name of my imaginary friend back when I was a kid, but now it just represents my subconscious, and everything in my subconscious is me. So that's the one piece of philosophy that I've been exploring, because if you have trauma coming in through your sensory system, someone says something really mean to you and then your thoughts loop. All that trauma through your sensory system is being encoded in your brain. It's your neurons. It's you. And so in the artwork that I do, some of this artwork here, I show trauma coming in through our sensory systems, but then transforming into a Zimber, into a representation of you. Everything inside you, all the trauma, all the negativity, everything is essentially a reflection or composed of you. And so therefore, transforming self to interpret these traumas can be a way of healing. So these are some ideas that I've been thinking about. That's why they all look the same. This outside Zimber, who's outside the boundaries, is Mother Earth. And so this is perhaps the idea that genetics and things like that can influence our subconscious. For example, if you're predisposed to be depressed, that depressive mindset can change the way that your subconscious acts and the way ideas and emotions come out. So the central Zimber it has a vessel. This represents the vessel of my grandmother. It's a clay pot that I had created for my rebirth ceremony. I put a link in the description, or put a link in the description if you're interested in that. And then what's being released is essentially a emotion or idea from my subconscious into my conscious world. Unlike the subconscious where things are undefined, the conscious world, things are a lot more clearly defined. That's what these waves are. And if you look very carefully, I don't know if you can see it, the waves are made from math equations, again, from here. And so, from this paper. And so this represents the cause and effect nature of the conscious world and how that contrasts with the subconscious world. So let me just see if I covered everything. Yeah, that's more or less it. And so the rest of the subconscious images I'll talk about is how these ideas from my subconscious into the conscious world can sometimes maybe be distracting, and how can they be used for something useful. Okay, so that's the first part of this book.